sing a happy song together, and we'll all be a happy family.
Oh, hi and welcome back to the channel and the next episode in the bush type vhf90. So switch to medium wave.
It just brings people together. It gives you that sense of bonding, and that's what we have at the Big Sing.
Yeah, so what about the people who say that? People say that quite a lot. Oh, I can't sing, I only sing in the shower. What about people who really feel they can't sing?
So yes,
Well, the majority
now working off its rod antenna
I think it's only 5% or something really
on
small,
medium wave. Switch across to FM. So there we have it. Both medium wave and long wave now working. Still no dial lights. Got those on order. So I'll go on now to explain what had to be done to get medium wave or AM back again. So what do you do these days when you get a problem you can't find the answer to? Yep, go on the internet, and here I printed off 3 pages, which are a little bit out of order, from a chap who sussed out the problem, which is a common problem, of the medium wave or AM not working on these sets. He actually described it, not in this part, but in another part, which this links to, as Bush's worst design disaster ever. And there are several problems with these, which I knew they were problematic. As I say, I wanted to do one because it's the one I grew up with. So that's why I'm tackling it. But yeah, I knew when I bought it they were pretty awful radios. That's a white version of it, and I've not seen one of those in the flesh, but they are a nice looking radio. And I think on the last page there's a picture of the one I've got. Now this fellow, apart from 1 or 2 other mods about changing resistors and so on, there is this section here which starts, I mean, first of all he gives advice which we all know really. Start by replacing all the Hunts, mould, seal and wax paper capacitors. Yep, we know the Hunts are no good, they're never any good, and 70-year-old waxes are not going to be likely to be much good either. Then he goes on to 1 or 2 other resistors that can be problematic, which I might address if they do become problematic. Here is a diagram of the switch unit, and anyhow, come on to the next page, and he gets down to explaining why this medium wave stops working. And basically, to look at the set itself, there, as it was originally, these are signal switches, and this here is switching high tension. So we've got high voltages right close to very high impedance input signals right at the front of the radio. And what happens with time is this insulating material, I tend to call it Paxilin, but I think that's a trade name, but this material over the years on some switches can become conductive, not very conductive. It's in the sort of several megohms, but with high voltages close to high impedance signals, it's enough to mess up the biasing on the input valve and stop it working properly as an amplifier, and so on. Now I'm going to put a link to this fellow's description, but the link may not work. I can't control that, but I'll put the link in the description so you can read for yourselves. But what it amounted to really was to take this switch, the high voltage one, and use the spare one. Now, the only trouble with that is there isn't a spare one. But this switch in this corner originally switched the AGC, the AM AGC, to ground when you selected FM. And so one terminal wasn't used. It was just a switch that threw the end of this resistor to ground. So basically what the fellow was saying was that although it's not quite as good a ground, it's still fairly well connected through the resistor when we're on FM. So you remove the resistor and the ground line from there and just connect that straight to ground down there, and then the wire that came off of here and went over here, remove that. And the other thing I had to do was this resistor here, move it from the end terminal to the middle terminal of that switch. Then that has freed up this switch. Now, the thing I didn't like about trying this mod is I actually had to basically destroy this switch. But to take the contacts off and get my Dremel and cut the wiper away, so that this switch is these wires here, while they're still on these terminals, are well away from the signal stuff over here. And then just run these stiff wires from there over to there, so that this switch now does the job that this one did. That was the modification. Now, it's not important to show in a way, but there's a shield that fits on here, and that you just loosen the screws and that just comes off. But that it's odd really, they go to that extent to shield this area and then put high voltage switching next to it. So I see what he means about design mistakes. But yeah, getting that switch operating over here, that is what actually brought the medium wave back. Because there wasn't really, I mean, I had a spare one of these switches, but can you imagine taking all this off to change that switch, and the other one probably have the same fault? So I thought, yep, there's nothing to lose really. We'll try his modification rather than just accept that it's not going to work properly on medium wave. And so medium wave is now working. And while we're under here, this is a chance to see that all the recapping that I've done, and all these red ones and my new ones that I fitted in. All the hunts and all the wax is gone. Very few resistors had to be changed. It's all pretty good. But yeah, that's basically the underside. Chance to look at it now. So what I've got to do really, I suppose, would be to check through the medium wave setup procedure now that I've got it working properly. I think it's all pretty well lined up, but I can check it out. The FM works nicely, and I do get classic FM, even though it's technically should be off the top of the dial. It does actually go far enough to pick up classic FM, which makes me happy. And I say it's working nicely now on FM. Medium wave, yeah, I think it'll be better when it's set up, but it's working well enough. It does pick up across the band, and there's hardly anything on there these days anyway. but it's nice to have it properly working. Now, the other thing I did this morning was to polish up the case. The grill cloth's nice and clean, really. I mean, you can see the shadow where the speaker goes, but that's common enough. I cleaned it up and very careful about not touching the back of the dial plate, because I had one of these before and the numbers will come off at the drop of a hat. So I simply just dusted it inside. I didn't even touch the dial plate, just the rest of the cabinet, and brushed the dust out of it. And then it had the inevitable white specks of paint that every vintage radio seems to end up with, which is a pity, really, because I had to be a little bit aggressive to get that off. But then I was able to get my Brasso, believe it or not, because that's quite good for Bakelite. Give it a polish with Brasso, and then wax polish, furniture wax polish is what I use on them. I did on the other one, and yes, it came up reasonably well. So we got the case pretty much ready. I don't want to mess about with that at all. And I've got the diffuser to go back in the front under the dial, and the dial lamps to go in. The back I'm not touching, that's fine as it is. It's even got the original screws to hold it on. So yeah, we'll wait for the dial lamps to come and hopefully they will work, and then can reassemble it. So that's the state of play at the moment, and that's the modification that I had to do to resolve the medium wave. And to be honest, I don't think I would have ever found that fault. I thought it might be a valve. I had a spare valve. I swapped it out. It made no difference. And yeah, I measured voltages. It didn't seem too far out to me, but I think it doesn't take much for it to be wrong. You don't want any positive on the grid, and with such high voltages right in that area, it was just asking for trouble. So, Bush's worst design disaster. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one, and bye for now.
Sing a happy song together, fill the air with harmony. Sing a happy song together, that's the song to choose. For pushing away the blues, keep the heartstrings running, there's a good time coming. It will keep on humming a melody. Sing a happy song